Hello, welcome back to E3 2016 with Outside Xbox. I'm Mike, got Andy here with me. And we have been playing one of the most exciting games of E3 2016, which is Battlefield 1. There was an amazing reveal of that a little while ago, and we've actually played it now. And given that the whole thing with Battlefield is Battlefield moments, we thought we'd share some of the coolest things that happened while we were playing the game. So in previous Battlefield games, if you were an infantry guy and you came up against a tank, unless you had like a sticky bomb or a rocket launcher, it was only a matter of time before you got either run over or machine gunned or you got a tank shell to the face. I really like the fact that if you can get into the right position with some of these sort of land ships, I think they're called in the game, you can actually clamber up onto the back and there's a hatch there and you can sort of attack that hatch, and there's a tank takedown move, which I failed to ever actually execute properly. But it's kind of cool that it's there, and that a single infantryman in the right position can take down a fairly substantial piece of hardware.
It's like something out of Titanfall.
Yeah,
in the First World War.
Yeah, almost like a First World War Titanfall.
So what, you have to like melee a hatch or something?
Yeah,
to get it open?
I jumped on and I got a couple of prompts. I got one for the right stick, which seemed to sort of initiate the kind of the rodeo, as it were, and then I had the option to hit the right trigger to sort of hammer away at the hatch.
Cool. So presumably you can smash it open and then toss a grenade inside.
I would hope, and it kind of makes sort of perfect sense.
Yeah.
But it's really intimidating when those tanks come over you're running around the trenches and stuff, and one of these giant tanks comes through, because they're really substantial things, and a lot of them don't look like how we think of tanks, not that traditional shape. They're these giant sort of tracked things, and but yeah, so I kind of like that you can make that difference as an infantry person.
Well, speaking of large vehicles, they have the behemoth vehicles in the game now. So there's like a train. And,
I don't understand the train thing. That's weird. Apparently that gives you a tactical advantage.
Yeah, but the one that we saw was the airship, the gigantic Zeppelin, and unfortunately for us, the opposition team called in the Zeppelin during our game.
You say unfortunately for us, but my understanding is that the behemoth comes in if you're losing.
Oh, does it? Right. Okay.
If you're on the back foot, then you get this kind of giant, potentially game-changing advantage, which should help turn the tide of battle. It didn't in the case of this match. We managed to win, but that actually happened because we were doing well. But yes, they're considerably more powerful than anything else on the battlefield. The Zeppelin itself has mounted gun points, it has bombs that it can drop. I think also, because I saw a bunch of guys parachuting down out of it, I think a lot of people were using it as a spawn point as well.
Yeah, well, it's being driven by one player who's controlling the sort of the bombardment stuff as well. Yeah. And then you've also got these sort of carriages on the underside of the Zeppelin, and you can use those as mounted gun emplacements, so you can be sort of hammering the control points from there as well. So yeah, there are a bunch of options for people who are in it, and like you say, just parachuting out of it gives you a really good high vantage point to sort of parachute down towards any of the conquest points that need to be taken. Yeah,
it's a really small thing, but the map now, when you're deploying, is actually a sort of lower detail version of the game map itself. So you can actually see the Zeppelin coming in on the map, and you can kind of try and get to a point where you might be able to have a crack at it. Based on that map, which is quite cool. You can see it literally floating across the map screen, which is pretty neat. All right, so at one point during the game, I was heading into a windmill, one of the control points.
Right, just to make some flour.
Yeah, I just thought I'd take advantage. Everyone else was distracted.
Bake some bread, have a
Some
snack.
bread. Why not?
Hope you bought enough for everyone.
I mean, the rations are pretty bad, so I thought I'd take matters into my own hands.
As soon as you see a windmill, you've got to take that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's a tactically important windmill to me. Anyways, in this windmill, it's a properly model. It's got the kind of staircase inside. It's not just some single model. And I got to experience firsthand the destructibility, which is one of the key things that they're banging on about when it comes to this game, is that pretty much everything can be destroyed. And so I'm standing in this windmill as the Zeppelin's coming over, and all of a sudden just the entire roof of the windmill and some of the walls just cave in, and I'm left still alive, fortunately, but standing on just sort of the top part of the platform of the windmill. Which gave me an amazing vantage point. I had a great view of the entire battlefield. I'm standing there, this single German officer. But what was really cool was, because this Zeppelin was coming over, and as I was saying, I think people were using it as a sort of mobile spawn point, basically, as it moved across the battlefield. there were guys parachuting out, and I was able to just stand on top of this windmill, 360-degree visibility now that the walls of that top part of the windmill had gone, and I was able to just pick off people as they parachuted down, which, as I understand it, is against the Geneva Convention.
Yeah, it's probably a war crime.
Yeah, but all's fair in love and war, apparently.
Battlefield, yeah.
Yeah, and definitely Battlefield, I'm sure.
Also new for Battlefield 1 are some new sort of melee options. I think you were using the hatchet.
I was running around with the hatchet, chasing people into buildings and stuff. There's quite a lot of options in terms of going inside of buildings and things. But you tried the new bayonet.
Yeah, well, there's a bayonet charge that it's sort of a special melee move. So you run at someone, you click in and hold the melee button, and if you're lined up just right, you'll sort of hit them with the bayonet and like pin them to the ground, and it's an instant kill. But you have to be on that exact right angle. If you get it slightly wrong, they get the opportunity to counter your move. Yeah. So line it up properly, and it's an instant kill. Don't line it up properly, and it's probably going to be you that dies. So it's kind of risky. It's more of a sort of a showboaty move, I think. But it can also come in handy in a pinch if you've run out of ammo and you need to close the gap. The other interesting thing about the melee is it was just really struck by how ornate the uniform was on the German soldiers that we were playing as. Because you see your sleeve when you're using the bayonet, and it just had these really shiny brass buttons all the way down it, like a big ornate cuff and brass buttons. And I'm like, that's quite stylish.
You picked your side then?
Yeah.
So obviously, one of your priorities when the behemoth comes into the map is that you've got to kind of take it out really
quickly.
Shooting
the behemoth
yes,
is your priority generally.
Suddenly, everything else takes a second place to that, because this thing's so powerful, and it really is designed as a thing to balance out for the losing team. So my strategy, which I quite enjoyed, was I took a tank and I was just firing tank shells at it into the air. So I had to park it on the edge of a crater so that it was facing up. But then I was able to just lob these tank shells and do like fairly substantial damage to this thing from the ground. So it's kind of, there's no sense that this thing's so high up that you can't, have a go at it with standard AA guns or tanks and things like that. Yeah,
I was firing at it from the gunner's position on one of the lighter armoured vehicles, but it was sort of only when we were going up hills I would like get a few shots off at it, because otherwise you can't aim the guns upwards. So yeah, you have to position yourself intelligently or else find something that can fire upwards like that.
Yeah, the tanks, you have to be a little more creative. Although I ended up getting my tank beached in a trench. And actually the trench itself was destructible. I saw it, sort of some of the wood that kind of supports the side of the trench start to crumble and stuff, but I very much got that tank stuck, which I think is probably a waste of some quite expensive military hardware.
Yeah, I think I did that as well, and then I got out, and barbed wire is super deadly in this. It's like instant kill, because I got out and I think I touched some barbed wire with my foot and just died.
I mean, even if you hadn't died instantly, you would have got a terrible infection and then died later on.
I've just been tangled up and just like, that's
caught
it.
There.
That was my war. Leave me here, guys.
Like a broken puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tragic, actually.
Okay, so while you were firing tank shells
very
helpfully at the Zeppelin, I was in the one of the aeroplanes.
So this is pretty exciting, right?
Yeah. So they're obviously old-timey aeroplanes from just after they invented them. So they're not, you're not in a jet fighter like you were in the previous Battlefield games, and they definitely feel a lot slower and a lot harder to maneuver. They're quite hard to fly in general. You can't just sort of point the nose up and you'll go straight up in the air. You have to really think about your angles and things like that, and momentum, and there's a giant turning circle. But when you're sort of attacking the Zeppelin, that's some really exciting stuff. It's like, Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, or whatever.
Crimson Skies.
Yeah, you're doing these strafing runs along the top of it, and the sort of the underslung gun carriages that I was talking about before. Those that you can take those out, so you're destroying the actual emplacements. I think it stops people being able to spawn there if you actually take them out.
Right. Those little capsules that are hanging under.
Yeah, so you can sort of piece by piece, you can cripple the different armaments on the Zeppelin, try and reduce it down to as little damage as it can deal. But it's just doing the strafing runs and turning around, and then getting into a few dogfights with some enemy pilots as well. And it's because you have it's sort of like the original Resident Evil
That's quite the comparison.
It's sort of like what people say the original Resident Evil was good because you couldn't control it properly, and that made it more scary.
Right.
The fact that you can't just constantly stay on someone, you're losing the person that you're trying to chase because you can't turn as quickly. So it gives it a whole different dynamic to dogfights in previous Battlefield games, because once you've got someone, you'll sort of rake them with machine gun fire, then they'll break off and you have to try and find them again, and you'll be searching the skies. You don't have like all that radar and things like that. You're having to like scan the horizon yourself. It's a very different feeling to how it was flying planes before. I really like it though. You can switch between the pilot seat and the gunner seat, which I accidentally did do once. Yeah, so I was like, oh, I wonder what this button does. Basically clambered out of the pilot seat, got in the gun, at which point the plane was like going down into a field. Managed to scramble back in, pull up at the last minute, and sort of just scrape the plane along and then it caught fire, and then I had to get out. it was pretty funny.
But this really appeals to me because I think there's been a real like sort of discomfort in terms of the type of scale you have in the previous Battlefield games, because the jets are extremely fast and you can blast across the map in seconds. But you know, the infantry maps can't be too big to, you know, otherwise you'd never see anyone. And actually, I think it's probably the case, not having flown the biplanes myself, but it's probably the case that actually the map feels really big. I mean, we were playing a map called San Quentin's Scar. And that was just felt huge. It felt absolutely massive. Tons of control points in conquest mode. But I'd imagine in a biplane, it takes you a fair while to get across the map, and there's plenty of space for you to do some proper dogfighting. Yeah,
I think there were 5 control points. My favourite thing about it was the letters that they would use to describe the different points. So it was like, we're losing point apples.
Yeah.
We're losing point butter.
That was weird.
Losing point Edward.
Yeah. It's like, I thought it was a food theme when it was apple and butter, but then there's like Edward and Duff.
Yeah, Duff. I think this was before the phonetic alphabet, maybe. They were just making up. She was like, point apple. She was eating apple. Point apples.
The things arranged on the desk.
Yeah. Edward walks in. She's like, point Edward. Right.
And the final really cool thing that we saw when we were playing Battlefield 1 was taking down the Behemoth. So taking the Zeppelin down. This was from an era when putting a giant balloon full of flammable hydrogen above a war zone seemed like a really excellent idea.
So mostly thanks to my efforts in the plane
and my helping in the tank.
A little bit. We brought down the airship, and it just basically obliterates the part of the map that it lands on. So it's sort of a bit of levolution in a way. But yeah, just try not to be under the airship when that comes down.
I mean, this is not the end of the match. You know, the match is still going on and it's still being determined by the control points and things like that. But it's a substantial move towards victory if you can take down the Behemoth, obviously, because they're already the losing team at that point. And hopefully they haven't become the winning team with the help of it. But yeah, it will flatten everything that's below it. And this thing's enormous. You know, you're not going to be able to run away from it as it's coming down, I don't think.
Yeah, you can see the shadow on the earth as it's sort of coming over.
This giant flaming balloon comes down. I think just in general, I mean, that's probably the biggest, most dramatic thing that happens during a match. But, you know, just in general, the game is really bombastic. Like this, you know, explosions feel really in your face, and you know you're getting pelted with dirt and things, and there's smoke, and it's just really it's a super intense experience. You know, I mean, you'll still have those points where it's Battlefield, so you'll still have points where you're running along a field with nothing really going on. But when you're in the thick of battle and there's you know machinery and infantry and you know air bombardment and things, it is phenomenally intense. All right, so those were some of the coolest things that happened to us while we were playing Battlefield 1. Thanks for watching, and do stay tuned to Outside Xbox for much more from E3 2016 on Battlefield 1 and all sorts of other games. We'll be seeing a lot this week, so please do join us. Thanks for watching. All right, so you may have noticed that was a video from E3, not from this comfortable studio. There's so much going on at E3, and you're in danger of missing all the exciting new news and things and new games that have been revealed, unless you click on this little window down here, where you can find out everything that's been going on. There's so much exciting stuff at this show, so check that out. Otherwise, if you'd like a sort of
a bit of a potluck. We've got down here a video that YouTube is recommending for you. So it's the video YouTube thinks you will like the most. So if you want to find out what that is and find out whether you like it or not, whether YouTube's crazy robot brain has worked it out properly, then check that one out. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.